Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We're about to start our webinar, part of our EPM Live webcast series. Today, we're going to touch again on a topic that we've dealt with before, which is software as a service in the PPM domain, and some criteria for understanding whether it's right for you and the offering that that we have at EPM Live on SaaS PPM. For those that haven't seen my name before, my name is Jose Levy, and I'm Regional Director within EPM Live. Been with the company about 4 years, so I've seen the evolution of our platform through that time frame, and have the privilege of being at different organizations implementing PPM both in SaaS and in an on-premise mode. So today, I'd like to walk you through some perspectives on SaaS and SaaS PPM. SaaS, as I said, is software as a service. So we're going to first talk about how it really has evolved as a service offering in the IT world to organizations. The value of SaaS to the organization and why organizations are looking towards SaaS and PPM. We're going to go through some readiness factors that deal, with topics that you might encounter when you first consider going to software as a service. We'll summarize some benefits, and then we'll get into our EPM Live PPM SaaS solution and how you can determine which one of our offerings is appropriate for your organization. So just a real simple definition to start with. SaaS is software that's owned, delivered, and managed remotely by a third-party provider. So that's what makes it a service. And there's many variations in terms of how you can consume that model. It can be, multi-tenant, what's called multi-tenant, which is one-to-many. It can be dedicated. It can have a pay per user mode to it, or it can be, based on subscriptions. There's a lot of different components that come into, the cloud offerings. There's some commonality, but in general, this is, at stated, software as a service means that a third-party provider is actually giving you the entire or software component. Now, something I like to show is that, this is really an evolution, because probably in your organizations, at some point, you have actually taken and used external data centers. And whether you have a data center internally or whether you actually lease that space, that physical security, that power from another vendor, that's what we traditionally call co-location. So we use an external data center to have our applications. What's happening now as a result of virtualization, as a result of evolution of more complex networks, the lower cost to have volume within a data center, is that we've gone to more of a managed service model. And what that means is that the service provider can go up and actually take care of the networking layer, the boxes, the CPUs, whether they're virtual or physical, and then the OS layer. And maintenance of all of those components is incorporated within a service contract. Really, software as a service now is when you get more into a fully outsourced model. Now, we haven't actually gotten here yet with PPM, but we're going in that direction, where the service provider is actually giving you the application infrastructure layer with a database, is actually giving you the application. In our case, we provide EPM Live on a SaaS basis, and is also taking some of these administrative capabilities and ownership of that role to some extent. It depends on the application. It depends on the domain that we're talking about. For PPM, we happen to offer, EPM Live does offer the ability to support your business process layer. And I think that makes us a differentiator, because at the end of the day, integration of the tool with your process is what is going to deliver value. So this is a perspective on how we've gone forward and how right now we're moving towards a fully outsourced application model. Together with that added value of the business process layer, just highlighting here some of the roles that we can participate in our SaaS PPM offering, and we can take even as far as having a business architect role within your organization through a professional service agreement. So we have the ability in project portfolio management through our offering to help you even more than just providing the application, the software, and the infrastructure for that. And in some cases, we actually have done that for customers. So you want to be able to have this flexibility to go into this mode if you need the help, because again, at the end of the day, driving adoption and managing the infrastructure and your process hand in hand is what's going to deliver the value to the organization. So pay attention to how the roles and the boundaries are between your SaaS provider and PPM and your internal organization. So in a very generic fashion, the value of SaaS is defined as, well, we can enable you as an organization to fund software deployment from an operating budget perspective. And that's really the whole argument of turning CapEx, which is what you would do if you bought it on-premise, to OpEx. So capital expenditure being converted to an operating expense. And that way, being able to manage it from a budgetary standpoint easier. The second has to do with the limited IT resources that an organization might have to deploy software, and it's not only it might be limited IT resources in terms of the time allocation that you have for your IT resources. If there are higher priority mission critical applications that you have for your resources to take care of, it makes perfect sense to take this application, this PPM application, and actually have it run by a service provider. So that limited IT resources also has to do with competency. So if they don't have the competency to manage a stack, then it's also valid to take it and have a service provider manage it. And then finally, you're going to have to be able to deploy the functionality quicker, because here, in our case, for instance, we can have an organization up running in a matter of a week. So if you were to take that internally and take that same project and put it through an internal installation and all the internal process steps for releasing to production an application, you would be talking, months, several weeks, if not months. So we can actually achieve a faster time to deployment, time to value. Specifically to PPM SaaS, I want to highlight some of the criteria that Gartner just put out in its Magic Quadrant for cloud-based PPM applications. It's fairly recent, so I thought I would, provide that for you. This is their criteria, and with some of these, I would, as a practitioner, I would tell you that I agree with some. I think that it's a bit of their own point of view, but the first point has to do with seeking mainstream PPM features. So if you look at an application, a PPM application, and the out-of-the-box capabilities are fairly, they can accommodate your process, then that particular application might be a good candidate for you to bring it in as SaaS. The second one also has to do with that. If you have you don't have a lot of customization or deep integration that needs to occur, that might be another reason for taking PPM. Now, I will say with that second point, though, that in our case in EPM, we do allow integration of applications, line of business applications, such as your financials for cost actuals, your HR enterprise resource pool that you might want to integrate, your bug and issue tracking third-party app that you might want to integrate. So out of the box, there's a number of items that are provided. What we're talking about here is, very, very deep integration of whole databases and data sets into the PPM application. You must be comfortable with the security, data, and network offered by the PPM provider. So, there's different service levels in our case that we provide to accommodate that. So it's just a matter of you understanding that what is available. the financial model has to be more attractive than an on-premise implementation, and I'll touch that in a second, just to provide some insight into how actually we calculate the cost model. But essentially, you need to do some analysis and understand what the cost is on-premise versus software as a service. That's a must. PPM readiness maturity has to be commensurate with the application. So in our case, we actually have a flexible spectrum of features that allows you to grow, evolve, escalate as you become more ready for the higher levels of maturity. So make sure that your SaaS vendor for PPM actually allows you the ability to grow in that manner. They talk about manageable user group deployments, and this is where I think we would differ. We've actually gone through and in a phase-like manner deployed very large user groups, 1,000 user groups successfully. So SaaS isn't necessarily a service offering for smaller user groups. You just have to plan it out accordingly in order to drive that adoption. And then finally, desire not to overspend the PPM application. I think what you'll find if you look at a comparison of on-premise cost versus hosted PPM applications, that you do have some savings in terms of the monthly subscription fees versus having an internally supported application. In order to drive to that, I just want to show real quick, and this is representative, by the way. In no way is it comprehensive analysis. Is just to give you an idea of the items that you would consider when doing a comparison of SaaS versus on-premise costs. On the left, we have the SaaS model, which is going to have a per user cost per month. That's going to provide what that software SaaS cost is going to be. There's an implementation cost depending on your requirements. Like I said, if the out-of-the-box capabilities are just enough, good enough, then we can get that up and running very quickly. In most cases, with our subscriptions, we include that implementation cost as part of the software SaaS, so you don't even have to worry about it. So again, in the best of cases, it's going to be zero. In the worst of cases, there might be some custom items that you have and can be done very quickly. You will have a help desk, and you might want to get some consulting support hours for help in the future. And again, that depends on how heavily you are going to require our help in integrating your process and evolving. Entirely flexible, so there's no high cost item as part of that. And that's basically what gets us to our cumulative total cost. And you want to do this on a TCO basis of at least 3 years, if not longer. We have some organizations that do it on a 5-year basis, but this should give you a good idea of what the total SaaS cost is. On the right, I have an on-premise model, and your licensing cost, again, depending on the number of users, might be higher or lower. There is an annual maintenance component instead of just the monthly per user fee that you're going to have for the SaaS. You will have some ongoing help desk and consulting support, and again, it might be higher depending on the amount of help that you're going to require to manage that infrastructure on-premise. I would say, in general, if we were to collect all the data points, it is higher. So the ongoing support that we would provide an organization for an on-premise implementation is higher than SaaS. The items that are not usually collected and they're deceptive, and you have to make sure that you take that into account, are your internal hosting costs and also your internal admin costs in terms of the direct full-time equivalent cost for the business architect and the back-end admin. Now, half of this role, when we actually provide EPM Live as SaaS, half or more, depending on, again, the level of integration that we have with your process, is taken up by our service fees. So you're eliminating this item to some extent when you're going with EPM Live SaaS. What we have found also is that our customers also, when they bring it on-premise, they have indirect FTE time because they have to spend more time managing the application and managing the all of the issues that come up with managing something on-premise. If you're taking on-premise that entire stack that I showed earlier, there's a lot of decision points that are going to occur on how you integrate resource pools, how you integrate users, and so on. So these are kind of the hidden costs that you don't see up front until you actually do the analysis. So let's go right now through some readiness factors that you might want to consider when looking at PPM SaaS. So the first one is, and this is would apply also for on-premise, but I think in SaaS it becomes more evident that you have your business process ready to be integrated. Do you have it documented? Do you at least have a set of requirements in terms of what you're looking for? Because that's what's going to drive you to decide whether the out-of-the-box capabilities are acceptable. So, as a better practice, you want to have, a set of requirements, even at a high level, even if it's only a high level, just to indicate what it is that you're looking for from the project portfolio management, project management solution. Have you specified the integration requirements with on-premise applications? So I mentioned earlier, we typically will be requested to integrate to a financial application, to an HR application, to bug tracking, issue tracking application, and those are all valid integration points. Typically these happen in what we call phase 2, just because of the desire to have the application up and running as quickly as possible and get value out of it, meeting those immediate business needs. So, but you will need to have those requirements defined and those source systems defined. And the last point I think is interesting: do not over-engineer the data refresh requirements. With our particular platform, there's multiple ways of doing integration. Some of them are manual and simple, and some of them can be more sophisticated in terms of APIs and web services. So I tend to recommend keeping it simple in order not to overcomplicate the architecture of the solution. Third factor has to do with security specifications, our data center practices and staffing. So in most cases we will respond to a security questionnaire that addresses all the different security measures that we currently have. So both for managing your application and managing your data. So this is an important component. Most organizations have security policies that transfer over to SaaS, but you need to have those, be aware of those at least when you enter into dialogue with a SaaS provider. This is probably the item that is most understated when entering to a SaaS contract, and it has to do with your internal network and internal bandwidth available for bringing on a SaaS application, and it also has to do with ports and firewalls and policies that will allow the internal user to actually access that external application. So we're finding more and more that as the application escalates, obviously this becomes more of an issue, and we monitor performance to see where the weak points that we need to address. But in most cases, we're coming back to and seeing that the internal network policies haven't been updated to address the external SaaS application. So just again, another point of for consideration. This one is pretty clearly stated in the service level agreement. So in our service level agreement, we'll provide the uptime requirements, 99.9%, and then also if you're requiring backups, if you're requiring redundancy, we can make that part of your application management. So it's an important point. We monitor performance, and in this case, what you will also include are planned downtimes for maintenance, which are included within the service level agreement. This next point, having to do with staging and testing processes, is very, very important because most SaaS vendors, and we do this, we have um, upgrades and patches that are placed on the tool, and you need to have the ability to test those prior to actually taking them to production. So we provide our customers with, at EPM Live, with test servers, test sites, for them to actually see the impact of upgrades on, existing configuration and existing sites. It's of significant value because the last thing you want is to apply an upgrade and have it in some way, damage the configuration that you've done. So we have, we provide the ability for you to have test servers and test sites for doing that upgrade testing. And you also should have control of whether to upgrade or not. And within our offering, we have the ability to offer you control over the upgrade process through dedicated servers that we can provide. The next point has to do with troubleshooting and making sure that you have a defined process for user support. That can be, in our case, in the form of a support contract and a help desk contract that we provide, and also definition of that process and how that takes place from your internal users that might be having issues to how you can escalate that to our help desk. So there's mechanisms that you should be looking for from your SaaS vendor in order to make sure that you can have the support process well defined. And together with the update process is configuration change requests. So maybe there's enhancements and improvements to the capabilities that are there. This goes hand in hand with the evolution that I talked about of features and of capabilities that you want to bring into the organization. So, the change request process is part of our offering, and what we do is through that consulting support contract mechanism that I showed, give you the ability to access the consultants, the technical engineers in order to drive that change that you've approved. What needs to be in your side of the organization is good governance and good change request management on the application. And I think this one is probably also understated. Organizations go in thinking, oh, okay, it's just SaaS, but what you need to manage is how changes are made to that baseline configuration that you started with. That includes actually making changes to your artifacts that have that configuration documented. Okay, so just to get us back to the benefits of SaaS, from everything that I've stated so far, what we're looking for are lower initial costs, paying as you go basis for what you use, and that particular point you will deal with also in the duration of the contract. So in most cases, you're going to have an annual contract for the SaaS solution. I'm aware that some even have 2 to 5 year contracts for the SaaS solution. It just depends on the flexibility of your vendor. On EPM Live, we're fairly flexible. We start with a 1 year contract for our SaaS offerings. It is a faster and less expensive implementation. Having come from the on-premise PPM system world, I can tell you that a good guidepost is that 50% or less in terms of the implementation time frame for a typical PPM implementation. And again, it just depends on how broad also your requirement set is and the number of users that will also drive the time frame. It is lower risk from an implementation standpoint, from an adoption standpoint, from a financial standpoint than an on-premise implementation. So we have organizations that start with on-premise and move on-premise later, and it's because of taking this lower risk approach when implementing a tool. Reducing operational management requirements, where we talked about your internal staff and having time freed up for higher priority mission critical apps by your IT staff. So really that's where you obtain the benefit of reduced operational management requirements. Lower upgrade cost. Here it's a more it's much more controlled and managed if you're in a dedicated service level. Lower switching costs. Well, you're relying on external infrastructure and an external application that you put through your operating budget. So, in terms of having that spend already made, you do have a lower switching cost from the on-premise model. And we do find that there's a higher user adoption because you are worried. Well, you're not worried. You have more of an emphasis on getting the application up and running immediately, rather than having to worry about all the other issues and work stream components that go with an on-premise implementation. I mean, the installation work alone in having an application on-premise, is a significant amount of time that you have to invest in your organization. So now what I want to switch is, how we address at EPM Live SaaS and why we believe that it's a very compelling PPM solution in the marketplace. Well, our starting point always, and this is a concept that's been around for about 12 years, so this is more than that probably if you look at the initial source of CMM. It's project management maturity and portfolio management maturity. So, in the best of cases, what you want to do is match the application features to your readiness for them. So if you're, for instance, if you're not really doing heavy resource management and resource plans, it could be something that you evolve into. You don't want to start with an application that requires that or has that as a required capability of when you first initiate an implementation. So a good starting point is, okay, are we at level 2? So from an execution standpoint, do we have some basic foundation project management process that can then evolve into a full portfolio management capability? And you see here how you evolve into it. But what we've seen is, most organizations are between that level 2, aspiring to get to level 3, and from a portfolio management standpoint, wanting to get to level 4. So our offering basically allows you to go from every one of these levels, 2, 3, and 4, depending on what your business requirement is and where your organization is in terms of project and portfolio management. And as a result, our 3 offerings that we provide as SaaS: Project Engine, which is web-based project collaboration, single project collaboration, focusing more on a single project and a team. Work Engine, which is multiple projects, multiple teams, having project portfolio visibility, having some resource management, and then work management. In other words, the ability to track all items that have been assigned to a team. And then finally, Portfolio Engine, which is at the highest level, being able to manage demand top-down, manage a portfolio top-down, and then doing the more disciplined financial management and resource capacity planning. And we'll walk through these in a second. But mapping to your current capability is seeing where you are and then determining which SaaS offering from EPM Live is best for you, can help overcome lower risk and overcome any adoption issues that you might have in improving your project and portfolio management in the organization. So just to some criteria for Project Engine, why would you use Project Engine? Well, Project Engine, the target user is really for that project manager and that team that needs something immediate, quick, something that doesn't require really a lot of expenditure approval. You can actually get a Project Engine site at no cost. And it's only when you increase to have more users and more data that you have to enter into a subscription. But here you're going to be able to share work assignments with the team. You're going to be able to see notifications, and you're going to be able to automate collaboration with folks entering a site and having artifacts that they can work with, all of the different lists and logs that we have within the site for you to manage. And it becomes that central place where the project manager and the team can focus their efforts for delivery. We have, you have the ability to really have the site available to you through a template immediately. So, once you register, you can get your site and you can start working on integrating your schedule and all the work that folks are going to have to complete to deliver the project. So it is pretty much an out-of-the-box tool with little to no customization that's needed. And like I said, it becomes that central collaboration place where you have artifacts, work, schedule, announcements, everything that that a team and a project manager are going to need. Our second offering is Work Engine. This is more for an enterprise project management set of requirements. You're going to have multiple projects, multiple schedules, multiple teams. You are going to have different types of work that you might want to register, service requests, product requests, enhancements, and you have the ability to define those within the system. Again, you're going to have collaboration driven for those multiple teams, and a user, a project team member that has that participates in multiple projects will be able to go into the different sites and also into the different projects and participate in that collaboration. Work Engine is more driven towards team members updating status, updating work status. So there is a My Work component where they go in and they will update issues, risks, project tasks, backlog items, anything that's been assigned to that team member. The drivers for success continue to be the same. We want projects to be on time and on budget, and in this case, we're going to be rolling up all projects, across all departments in the enterprise. So you do get a roll-up of the portfolio of projects within the organization, and you also have the ability to see the resource workload for all resources. So any work that's been defined against a team member, you will be able to see it at a top level to determine whether there's an over-allocation. Our highest level offering is Portfolio Engine, and this is it consolidates all the capabilities that we have in Project Engine and Work Engine, and it also adds this top-down planning capability for you to do selection and prioritization, for you to actually capture demand that might be coming from the organization in terms of work, and the ability to take those demand items through a selection and prioritization process and approval process through a governance workflow and life cycle stages. In addition to being able to see all of the work, you can actually plan portfolio work through resource capacity planning features that we have within the tool. You can start by planning with generics and then do match and replace with named resources on portfolio items, and then see what the overall workload is on a specific department by project. The tool also gives you the ability to forecast cost through a cost planner. So it's a planning grid that reflects your budget for different types of cost categories, and you can plan also other direct costs in dollars or units, whatever your budget template might be. With all that information, then you can do scenario modeling, both on cost and on resources to see exactly where the portfolio stands over a period of time. If you want to extend the tool to do project execution, you can, and that's where it ties to the approved projects and the work assignment to the individual resources. Typically, because we're dealing with budget and resources, it does require a little bit more configuration, although we've also, through default templates, simplified that process. So, you can still benefit from having a SaaS portfolio engine solution in a very quick time frame. So in our case, we actually provide also an on-premise solution. Even though we're talking here about SaaS, the main thrust of this slide is to show you that we have the flexibility to move across a different model. So you can start with SaaS, and if need be to actually go into a hosted model with your own licenses, you can. And if you actually want to take it internally, take that same data set internally with on-premise, with an on-premise implementation, we can transfer that on-premise. So this is more a matter of your internal readiness, your preference, your technology preference or technical preference for doing SaaS versus on-premise. I could say that the more successful cases are where the organization considers SaaS first and then moves on-premise if need be. I have had customers that started in that mode and then have stayed in SaaS just for the achieving the benefits that we talked about. I've had other customers, by the way, that started on-premise, and they thought they could manage and get the value on-premise, and then have moved to our SaaS model or a hosted model because they see that as a more compelling way of freeing up resources internally. Either way, we provide you that flexibility, and it's not a very difficult process as it was in the past. Now it's easier to actually move between one model to the other. Our solution is based on SharePoint, so that also helps in making sure that we're working within the same platform. Within our cloud environments, we have also several service levels. So we have the shared multi-tenant model. If you're just interested in, if you're not really, concerned with having your own dedicated service, because we do have the ability to put you on a dedicated offering if that's needed. And then if you actually do want to have physical infrastructure behind all of your data, we can have that also. So it just depends again on what your requirements are, the sensitivity of the information that you're going to be managing, and so on. And when we actually engage in discussions with customers, we walk them through the different options and see what works best from a cost and service level standpoint. So as I summarize all the advantages of EPM Live as your SaaS vendor, first of all, if you weren't aware of it, we are built on SharePoint, and that typically turns into easier adoption, ease of use, and familiarity. In most organizations, SharePoints already exist in some form or another, and our application is just a layer on top of your existing SharePoint farm or a SaaS farm that we might be providing you. As I said, we provide SaaS and on-premise offering, and that flexibility is helpful for driving the value of our application. I would recommend most customers start in SaaS and then decide whether to move on-premise just for all the benefits that are available. We have a number of pre-built solutions for rapid deployment. I showed our three main applications, but in addition to that, we have other apps that are available for agile service requests and so on. So that's part of our offering available to our subscribers. So the solution options allow for matching to your project and portfolio management maturity. So by turning features on and off, we can meet your business requirement to drive value from project and portfolio management, and then you can start that as a base there, and then evolve into the higher level capabilities that we have. We focus on managing all work, so it's taking all of the resource time and seeing whether you have enough capacity for all that work. So it's not only about project tasks, it's about all the work that an organization has to deliver. Our deployment options are flexible also, so we have a quick start process that allows you to be up and running very quickly with the out-of-the-box capabilities. And in our SaaS subscriptions, some of that setup is included, so you really don't have to incur implementation costs. We do have a customer support program to ensure your success, so there's health checks that are available, as well as a dedicated team to your organization. EPM Live University is our learning management system, and we have enrollments for leveraging all of our content and training, both live instructor-led sessions as well as recorded videos on usability of our system and our training manuals and our forums. So there's a lot that you can consume in terms of building up and ramping up your capability just by using our EPM Live University. And then finally, like I said, we have an application marketplace that we're coming out with where you will be able to add additional capabilities and features as applications to your implementation directly from our application store. So another value-added offering from EPM Live. I would encourage you to try our offerings. We have within our website, you can go directly and sign up for a trial for all three of our offerings. The capabilities are listed there, both Project Engine, Work Engine, and Portfolio Engine, and all within epmlive.com, available for you to register for a trial. And as part of the SaaS discussion, we actually have a SaaS readiness survey that we can make available to you. It can incorporate some of the topics that we covered today in terms of determining whether you're a good candidate for SaaS. If you happen to have any other questions or want to go into a deeper dive into any of the topics that I talked about today, feel free to shoot me an email, jlevy@epmlive.com. I'd be more than happy to engage in that discussion with you. And to close, you can leverage our PPM capabilities online today. So go ahead and give it register for a trial, and you can have any one of our offerings made available to you, so you can try it with your organization, your data, your process. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time and open up the floor if there's any questions. Morgan, I don't know if we'd like to close at this point.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll go ahead and we're going to be sending out a recording of this webinar for you and the presentation PowerPoint a little bit later this afternoon. And at that point, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me directly, and I can happily put you in contact with Jose. So at that point, we'll just go ahead and close the webinar for today. Thank you for spending your morning with us, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.